My guest this week, Bob Livingston, is an American singer, songwriter, guitarist, bass player, and a founding member of the Lost Gonzo Band. He was a key figure in the cosmic cowboy, progressive country, and outlaw country movements that distinguished the Austin, Texas music scene in the 1970s. Over the years, Livingston has gained a reputation as a band leader, solo artist, session musician, and sideman in folk, Americana, and country music. He has toured for 5 decades.
The world.
The entire world. And brought his music to everyone, his Texas music. He has a brand new book coming out, along with all the music he's released. He's got a brand new book coming out. Is it the beginning of November?
Yes, right here. That's what it looks like. It's on Texas Tech University Press, and the books are being printed right now. I think they're somewhere, but it's not. Sometime in August, and at the Texas Book Fair on November the 8th and 9th. That's kind of my shooting spot to release it.
Can I have one of those?
Yes, absolutely. I do have some.
Is this the size of the book too?
No.
Gypsy Alibi, a Gonzo memoir. And Bob, you sent me a digital copy of this a few days ago, and I did my very best. It's about 57 chapters. And something that I find really neat about it is I was able to jump around, because I knew I wasn't going to get through 425 pages, but I wanted to read as much as possible. So I jumped around a little bit and got different tidbits from your life. But though it is, kind of goes in order of things, also every chapter seems to be a unique story. How did this book start? How did you go about putting it together?
Well, I had always been on the road with Jerry, Jeff, and Murphy, and so many things had happened, and just the colorful life on the road. And so there were stories about it all. And I remember I was out on a run with my son. I have a young son named Trevor, and he had one of his friends running, and it was at night on Town Lake with the dim lights, and the river is kind of right there. And he said, "Dad, tell Sean about the time that Murphy," I'm not going to say what he did, but and so I told the story as we're running, and they laughed and they said, "You need to write a book." And everybody had always told me that, but for some reason cogs clicked when he said it, and he said, "Just write 1 page a day, and you'll have a book." And that's the best laid plans, but I did kind of somehow sort of take it seriously. And I'd had an office there in Austin, and I went in and I wrote 10,000 words about a train ride in India, and just a little free thinking, just stream of consciousness. And I never had a plan with a book, but they were there's stories. And since I worked for the United States State Department and went to 25 countries with them, and so there was plenty of fodder for interesting things that happened there as well. And it wasn't just Jerry, Jeff, or the Gonzo Band, but it might go. The one chapter may be on a road, down on my hands and knees with Jerry, Jeff, and the other chapter may be on a placid river somewhere. We went to Yemen and Syria, Kuwait, all over the Middle East, places that we can't go to today.
And you spent a lot of time, in particular, there's several stories from India. What is it about India that drew you in specifically?
Well, when I remember once, when I was living in Lubbock and put on that album Rubber Soul, and I once had a girl, or should I say she once had me. was this instrument in the back. Turned out to be a sitar. And George Harrison was a student of this guy, Ravi Shankar, and pretty soon I was the first kid in Lubbock to have a Ravi Shankar album. I don't know about that for sure, but I ordered it, and I just got interested in India. And then later on, my wife got really interested and we had 2 boys, took both of them to India. And so I went to visit as well. And when I was there, I met a guy walking down this paddy field. His name was, I don't want to say his name, but he was an American like me, and there we were in India, and he's working also for the State Department, but he was a Rhodes Scholar, and he did legal aid. He was doing legal aid clinics all over the country. And he said, I said, man, so you're getting to see the whole country? And he goes, yeah, it's really fantastic. He said, you know, if you can convince the State Department you're an expert in anything from legal aid to hydroponics to country music, you may be able to get a gig. And I said, okay, that's me. And I at that time, the telephones, you could not get a call through. There was, of course, no internet, nothing like that. But the telegram worked, and I sent a telegram to Delhi. I'm a musician here, and, you know, I'd love to, I'm talking to this guy, and love to, how can I get on? And he says, meet us in the closest consulate or embassy near you.
Yeah.
And in my case, it was Madras. It was a 17-hour train ride away. But John Inman, who's the great guitar player, and so John and I were there. Anyway, we were there doing, you know, looking for the cosmic connection somewhere. And all of a sudden, they tell me to go to Madras, and so we got on the train and we froze to death all the way there in second class AC. But when we got to Madras, we knocked on the door of the consulate, and so they bring us to this guy. His name is Timothy Moore, and he's a public affairs officer for the State Department. And they're responsible for music, art, photography. If you walk around in a consulate anywhere in the world, on the walls are these incredible paintings or some kind of exhibit, and the artist is usually there in town giving workshops. And that's all the State Department used to do. I don't know if they do any of that anymore, but they were doing it then. So there was a lot of people you could cross, meet, and he says, okay, what are you going to do? And all the way, I'm trying to, how am I going to do a program for the State Department? What would they want to hear? And I said, I'm going to do a show about the American folk and country music, maybe the origins. And I'm thinking on my feet, and I'm saying, from Ireland and Scotland, and all those melodies came over and landed in Appalachian Mountains, and all those hillbillies wrote songs to it, and I did, I've got them Blue Ridge Mountain Blues, and I do it, and he just looks at me, this guy. And then those same melodies went on out west, and those cowboys wrote new lyrics to them, and I did some cowboy song, and he just stared at me. Pregnant silence. And about halfway through the third song, he stopped us and he said, hold on, do you mind? And he reached down behind his desk and he pulled out a banjo. And he said, I've been waiting for you to walk through this door for a long time. And he said, you come back next year. So this was like that was in 1986. And so in 87, I'm playing with Jerry Jeff, and John's playing with Jerry, so it's this cosmic thing, but we get the gig. And we go back in 87, we play all over India, and then John decided he wanted to go home, but here was my family there. So I stayed, and they gave me, and Jerry Jeff was off on a solo tour anyway, so my connection with him was slowly severing at that point, and I was able to get in on quite a few, went all over, Pakistan and Nepal, Bangladesh.
You got to see the world.
Several times, yeah.
And now, did this banjo player, take
The
off
banjo
from
player
Italy?
comes back, tells us, Tim Moore says, the first gig is in Cochin, India, southern India, in Kerala, which was very ironic because we were living around there anyway. And so John and I show up, and Tim shows up with his banjo, and at some great part in the program, we invite the State Department guy to come up, and we do Fox on the Run or something like that. And it was good. He was good. He was a disgruntled bluegrass player, happened to be all over the world, with his banjo, and didn't have anybody to play with. So,
How long did you do that for, work with the State Department?
well, every other year I would get a tour on up. The last time I went was in 2016. Went to Pakistan, but the strange thing is when it happened, it was so the election has happened. I'm talking to India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, these countries that had, to get a gig with the State Department, you deal with who and what public affairs officer might be posted, who might have been posted in Lahore, Pakistan, now is in Bahrain. And she calls up and says, how would you like to come over here and play Bahrain? Well, if we're going to play Bahrain, just get as many countries as you can. That's why we got to do the Middle East. But it was somebody that saw me before. And then I took my son, Tucker, a really good guitar player, and he started going with me, so it was like a father and son thing. The State Department liked that idea, and the people liked it. The audiences would say, we don't have a great view of American families. We hear terrible things, and we're glad to see a father and son getting along. And little did he know. Oh, it got terrible, but it was just so interesting to have Tucker. I don't know if you want me to tell all this, but to have Tucker on the road, you want to stop me?
Well, I wanted to back up a little bit, but to have Tucker on the road, finish your
Well, to have Tucker on the road, it was father and son, and we're in Calcutta, and it's intense, but we play the American Center, and a really good crowd. We do our show, and I do all the songs, and I teach them how to yodel, and they're all yodeling, and it's just this great thing. And so after the show, we're standing there talking, saying goodbye to everybody, and this guy comes to me, and he goes, "My name is Samit Roy. I'm the world's foremost exponent in Bengali music. You have to come to my house now." And I was like, well, I don't know, but the State Department, they put you in people's houses sometimes. You stay there. Home hospitality, they call it. But otherwise, they want you to, and he goes, and the guy goes, my PAO says, guy, he's the best Bengali music in the country. Mm-hmm. And so he's a singer. So it would be good if he went to his house. So Tucker, meanwhile, is, he doesn't want to do anything. He's tired. No, I'm not doing this. I don't want to talk to anybody. You got to do it. They want us to do it. Just come on with me. So he comes. And it's this giant apartment on the 6th floor that we have to walk up at this place. And this guy, Samit Roy, and his wife, and her mother and father, his mother and father, all living, in these big rooms. Giant living room with a piano. And his son is sitting at the piano playing jazz. and just ripping it. And the guy comes up and he sings Unforgettable, the guy with the little pencil thin mustache, Samet Roy. And so all this is happening, and they have, you know, and all of a sudden he comes up, and I don't know where Tucker is at this point. And I'm looking around for him, and I look in the kitchen, and Tucker's standing there next to this girl. And she's at the sink and making dinner or something, and he's going, glass, glass. She goes, Dada, Dada. And he goes, Dada, you know, whatever the word is. And they're picking up things and they're talking, and I go, oh, okay, I get it, I get it. And all of a sudden the guy says, Bob, you and Tucker have to stay for dinner. And it's about 10:30, 11 at night. You got to stay for dinner. They eat late, and the room is full with all these Bengali musicians and businessmen and whatever. And he goes, "No, I don't think Tucker would like it at all." And Tucker comes out of the kitchen, "Dad, we've got to stay for dinner. It would be an insult if we didn't stay. We have got to stay." So we stay, and. A little bit later, Samet Roy around the table says, "And you know, I just love your son, Tucker. He is such a homeboy, always wanting to be in the kitchen and help prepare the food." I said, "Yeah, right." And after we leave, Tucker has fallen madly in love, and he goes, "Did you see her? She's my new wife. I'm going to get married to her." And I'm saying, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "No." So we have to go back to, up to near China the next day, but he goes up near China and he buys her all this stuff. So we go back to Calcutta and he calls this Samet Roy, and he says, "I need to speak to Malinka." And he goes, "Tucker, it's great to hear from you." "Well, what are you talking about?" "Speak to Malinka." He goes, "You know, I really like. Why do you want to speak to her? I like her. I want to hang out. I've got some things for her." He goes, "You're not going to speak to her. What are you talking about?" And he goes, "She's my servant. She works for me. And in all of the houses you see in all the apartments, they all have servants. And one of them will say, 'Why did my master bring me a rich American musician and give me all this presents? Why didn't that happen to me?' And it's called the evil eye, and it's envy. And they take it seriously, absolutely. And this guy said, "You got to understand, Tucker. This is just something that can't happen." Meanwhile, Tucker wants to whisk her away, and went to State Department. He actually lodged a complaint at the U.S. State Department. The guy went, "Tucker, he's right. There's nothing you can do. We're not going to intervene for you." So we took it all to Mother Teresa, and we gave her all this stuff.
My goodness. Wow. Well, I want to go back a little bit in time. This was a nice, a segue into the U.S. State Department, all the work you did with them, and getting to travel with your son and stuff. I want to go back to the 60s.
Yeah.
You were in Lubbock, your family moved to Lubbock, and you were very much in that scene, and there was a period of time between 68 and 71 or 72, and I kind of couldn't believe how much moving around you did and different things. Starting off with in Lubbock, you opened up a folk club.
Oh yeah.
In the basement of an ice cream shop. And you were what, maybe 20 years old at the time? And you would play up there. That's all good.
Okay.
Yeah, I just shut it.
Yeah, it was called the attic.
Yeah.
It was in the basement.
In the basement of an ice cream shop.
Of an ice cream
And he
shop.
just let you do this out of the goodness of his heart. You probably didn't have a lease at this point.
No. He just said, "Yeah, if you want to do something down here." And Lubbock was, happening in a folky way, and the Flatlanders were out there somewhere. I'd gone to Lubbock High School, but Ely and Jimmy Dale and Butch, they all went to Monterey. So I didn't really know them, and they were 2 or 3 years, in some cases, older than me. But I knew, I'd heard of Ely, and I got really interested in, so I had him come and play at the attic.
And that was a relatively short-lived thing.
Yeah, just to end of the semester, and because I was I wanted to play, and I was influenced by Ely because when I first saw him, he was sitting on a Showman amp with his Gibson guitar, funky, plugged into a Barkus Berry, plugged into the amp, and he had a hi-hat cymbal. And he would do the backbeat, so he was like, a drummer's hi-hat. So he's like playing, and I thought, that is so cool. And so I went to the pawn shop next day, got the hi-hat. My brother-in-law loaned me his super reverb, and I got an electric guitar somehow, and I was at the bottom of that club singing Proud Mary and Sugar Pie Honey Bunch, and all the frat guys were going, because I had the background of being, playing for people like at church camp and stuff, playing the ukulele and all the girls like that, and you're singing all those songs, whether it's Kumbaya or whatever. Yeah, I went through that for real.
And then you ended up in just the very next year in '69 going to Red River, New Mexico, and making some connections there. And you kind of lost interest in school as well, but you kind of needed to stay. But you kind of needed to stay in school for for military reasons.
The only reason I was in school is because of the Vietnam War, and that had still the biggest single registration in the history of universities. I think comparatively, when that war was going on, because if you didn't have a deferment or you weren't legally crazy or have some infirmment, you were going, and I didn't want to go for sure. So I got a great draft lottery number in the first draft, and I quit school the next day. And I went to Red River, and I met Three Faces West. I was playing in Red River, and Three Faces West, Rick Fowler Wayne kid, this wise ass named Ray Hubbard. It wasn't Wiley yet. He was just plain old Ray Hubbard. And they were playing, I learned so much from them. They were playing in their own club, and they were just so great. Funny.
And how long was it before you ventured off to Aspen and then California?
Well, at the end of that summer, this was 1969, and the end of that summer, we go back and they have the first draft lottery. And when they say, you're number 309, son, they pulled, you've seen they pulled it out of a big, November 26th, 309. And so it meant I went down to the draft board, and they said, you'll probably never get drafted, but you'll have time to get back in school and get your deferment if it gets close. And so I quit. My brother was a musician too. He lived in Nashville. He was living in Aspen, playing at this club, and he said, you come up here and play après ski, which is the 4 o'clock slot when ski slopes are playing, then people all just ski right down into it. Yeah. And you have to play cover stuff, you have to know songs. And that my brother had always been a proponent of that because he had always made a living. He was a guitar teacher. He taught those songs. He knew thousands of songs, and he played in those clubs, officers' clubs, and for fraternities. They didn't want to hear your own songs. That's what Gary Nunn got so bent in shape about, because he'd have to play all those gigs, and nobody's, he had songs he wanted to. Until Michael Murphy came along, he didn't have a clue as to how he'd do that.
And when you were in Aspen, did you have, was John Denver there at the same time?
Yeah, see, my brother had gone to school at Tech.
Yeah.
And John Denver went to school, so he knew John Denver, and John lived up there. And so he, was hanging around in this place called the Anchorage, great steakhouse. all the waiters are millionaires, I think, and because they live there and they make so much money in tips, and movie stars and all that, John Denver hanging out. So I'm there playing après-ski, and this guy comes in, and he came in the next day, and about the third day he says, "Hey, my name is Randy. I'm from Los Angeles, man. I really like your voice. I like your songs. I think I can get your record deal." I mean, how many times has that happened to you? And
well, that sounds like something that happens in a movie, but not real life.
Right.
Especially in 2025, right? It's almost
not
almost,
anymore.
Yeah, it's almost the story we joke about. Like, well, I was playing in that bar, and you never know.
Yeah.
So and so came in,
You
but that's
never
actually
know
what happened.
who's going to be in your audience. I always tell.
Yeah.
Say.
Yeah. And a talent scout was in your audience.
He wasn't a talent scout. He was just a guy. He had worked for this international famous agency. It's called IFA, and he was an agent for people like Anthony Quinn and Peggy Lipton and movie stars and stuff. And he had just dropped acid, quit, went to Nashville, spent all his money being a ski bum. And I meet him. He goes, "Come back, I'm living." And he lived right there at Beverly Hills, Beverly Glen. And so, I actually took him up on it, and I showed up there and stayed there, and he got me an audition with Capitol Records.
Now you went to his house for the first time. You went to his house before he got back to his house, right? Wasn't he still
yeah.
on a trip?
Yeah. He sent me, I didn't think it was really going to happen. He told me this, and he's supposed to meet me, the ski season was closing. It was the last day of skiing, but it was a blizzard. And so I did not think in that way. They extended. So Randy's out there skiing, and he's supposed to, meet me at 11 o'clock, and it's 11, and then it's 11:30, and it's noon, and it's 12:30, and I'd found a couple of hippies that wanted to, go out to LA, and they'd split the gas with me, this guy and a girl, I'd start my car, and the smoke is billowing out from the exhaust, and I'm waiting. I go, I don't think he's going to come, and I may have to go back to Lubbock to get back in school. And both these hippies said, "That's okay, we'll go to Lubbock."
Oh my God.
That was the craziest thing about the whole thing. But all of a sudden, here's this beautiful, dark, almost black-green Buick Riviera rolls up, and he says, "Sorry I'm late. Here are the keys to my house. Here's the address. Meet me out there. I'm going to ski another couple of weeks."
So you just went out there by yourself?
I go out there by myself.
Did you have a smartphone?
And it's Beverly Glen Boulevard, and it's like this. I get there at night, and the street's about this big, and Bel Air is here, and Beverly Hills is here, and Beverly Glen, where Brian Wilson lives, and Marlon Brando up at the top, but it's the street's windy, and I pass it, and then I go, how am I going to turn around? I go all the way up to Mulholland Drive before I figured I could turn around somewhere. And anyway, I get to it. Somehow I get to it. And I knock on the door, and there's this guy there, and he kind of knows I'm coming, but he's irritated that I'm there. And his father is the president of Universal Music. That guy's father. Wow. So this guy, Randy, had gone to Beverly Hills High School. He knows all these people, hung out, he knew, he's just like, it was just another world from what I was used to at all. And I'm gonna get you. So we get the lawyer, and we go to Capitol Records, and I'm in this giant studio you see in the, and these suits, three or four suits walk in. They sit down and go, "Okay, what you got?" That quick. And it was Sal Onanich, the president of MCA, and of Capitol, and 2 or 3 other guys. And I'm going, and I played about 3 songs, and he goes, "I think we can work with that," and gets up and walks out. And this guy lawyer that set it all up says, okay, we're gonna work it out, blah, blah, blah. And they got me $10,000 advance. And $10,000 is, back then, how much is it worth? Somebody Google it. $10,000 in 1970.
Wow.
Money. And the manager takes 25%. The lawyer takes 10%. I get $6,500. More money than I've ever seen. And I go out and buy a Datsun pickup truck and a Martin guitar. And that was my new phase. You know, all of a sudden here I am. I got this record deal. I don't know what it means. What's going to happen? Holy mackerel.
Wow. But you didn't stick around in LA for very long. You got right back to Texas, back to Austin.
Because, you know, I guess I stuck my foot in my mouth, who knows, but the record deal wasn't happening. You know, there was no news. My manager was going, oh, you know, there's some changes going on. He didn't want to tell me. He told me to go to Hawaii, see your girlfriends over there. I knew a couple of girlfriends over there, but they were friends. They really were.
Yeah.
And I went there, and they went to the University of Hawaii. So they put me up. I hung out in Hawaii about a month, and then I get the call saying, you got to get back here. They fired Sal. They fired the president. They fired everybody. They're firing everybody. And they're probably going to fire you too. And they fired 150 artists. It was the Capitol Records was awash in Beatles money. And they were throwing things on the wall to see what stuck. This particular regime.
Yeah.
But the badass Artie Mogul comes in and fires everybody. And I hadn't been fired yet, but I write a letter to him. Dear Artie, I'm a Capitol Records recording artist, or so I'm told. I'm up here in Wrightwood, you know. I met Michael Murphy. We're writing new songs. I'm discovering trees. Why don't you come up here and see me? I got these new songs. We can discover trees, go on hikes. You know, I'm like trying to, you know, and it pissed him off so bad because I crossed that boundary between artist and record company. You're supposed to do it through your manager and not talk to me like this. So yeah, I was fired.
Right. You got to keep the guitar in the pickup truck?
Huh?
You got to keep the guitar in the pickup
I
truck?
got to keep the guitar in the pickup truck. I lived out, you know, I in that pickup truck, I'm driving down, you know, in Los Angeles, and there's a hitchhiker, and he jumps in the car, and it turns out he's from Germany and works on foreign cars for movie stars. And he's a mechanic. Why he was hitchhiking, who knows? But, so I tell him I'm a musician. He looks at me and goes, the only other Texan I know is from Dallas. He's a musician too. His name is Mike Murphy. Mike Murphy, with Three Faces West playing all his songs, you know, and like, he had already written Wildfire. This is 1970. Already written Wildfire. What? You know Mike Murphy? If you ever see him again, give him my name and number. I don't know. I just gave it to him, and that night, Murphy called me up.
Oh my God, yeah.
Who are you? Why am I supposed to be calling you? My mechanic gave me your name. And I told him about Red River and Ray Hubbard. And I said, these guys play your songs. They're about as good as anything I've ever heard since the Beatles. And Murphy said, you know what? You're a genius. We need to meet. So that's how, you know, I met Murphy.
This sounds like the greatest record deal ever. They gave you a guitar and a pickup truck, and then they didn't take anything else of yours, and you met a lifelong friend.
Met a lifelong friend. The money ran out. I had no record deal, and now my man, that guy, goes, he was just up at the barn dance, which we did, and I always thought, you know, it's like, there was no plan B. That was the name, going to be the name of my book. There was no plan B. Because when the record deal fell through, he didn't say, oh, we're going to do this, don't worry. It was just like, you know, like, it was just like, you know, tumbleweeds flowing across the landscape, and a buzzard in the sky, you know, flying over me. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And Murphy came to see me. Why are you so down? I said, I just lost my record deal. Ah, don't worry, something's gonna come through. And he came back the next day, and he had a guitar case with him, and he goes, hey, I got gigs back in Texas. Come play with me. You can play bass. Bass? I don't know how to play bass. He said, you'll learn. And he gave me a Fender Precision bass. And that became, I played for the next 40 years. Bass.
Wow. So, and I want to get into, you know, to this relationship further with Murphy and Jerry Jeff and Los Gonzo Band, because you guys put out records, had your music, and then you were a backing band for several different artists.
Yeah.
So, how did that relationship come about, where you're a band and you're you know, kind of like the band traveling with, you know, Ronnie Hawkins and then Bob Dylan. You guys were a band backing up different artists. How did that?
Well, you know, it's always in relation to the gig. You know, we with Murphy and the way that band got going, which is another crazy story. You have to read the book, but we come to Austin with Murphy and play these shows, and you never know who's going to be in your audience. And we go to. Can I go ahead and tell this part of the story?
Oh, yeah.
So we get to the Rubaiyat, which was the folk club mecca in Dallas, at least. And there was clubs here in Nacogdoches. We played Houston, a lot of places, and we go to the Rubaiyat and we play. And you know, Murphy at this time, I mean, I didn't even know how special it was. You know what I mean? It's like the waters was so thick. You had Frumholtz, you know, out there writing songs. B.W. Stevenson, Willis Allen Ramsey, they're playing these clubs and they're playing solo. It's folk music. It's songwriter driven, you know, and Murphy's were greater than any of them, I thought. And so, you know, we're in there playing, and this guy out in the beer garden between sets, his name's R.A. Caldwell, and he says, man, you guys are great. You need to meet Bob Johnston. He's a brother. I said, Bob Johnston, and he's this producer in Nashville, producing Nashville Skyline, Blonde on Blonde, Sounds of Silence, Live at Folsom Prison, you know, Columbia Records guy. And you need to meet him, he's a brother. And so I go, yeah, right. So we were on that circuit then, and we'd go back to California, which I still lived, and we'd come back out for another tour because they really wanted it to happen. So mostly it was around Texas and Colorado and New Mexico was where we were playing. And it was really catching on, and there's R.A. Caldwell saying, you need to meet Bob Johnson, he's a brother. And so finally, by the third time I said, well, if he's such a brother, get him here. So he did. And he was a friend of his, he was a house painter for Bob Johnson in Nashville. Bob had to go to a funeral in Fort Worth or something. It might have even been his father, I'm not sure. And he would happen to be there. And he said, set it up. He couldn't come to the show, but he sets up an audition. And it's like 2:30 in the afternoon. His flight is later that night. And we never met this guy. We didn't know anything about him. And we're there at 2:30, and it gets to be 2:30 and 2:45, 3 o'clock, 3:15. It's a dark little club, kind of stiff in there, and real dark. And all of a sudden, at about 3:15, the door bursts open, and it's this banty rooster, and he says, man, I just wrote a song on the way from the airport. Is there a piano in here? It's the first thing he says. It's one on stage, and he goes, all right, let me just sit down here. And it's like this, well, Lord Jesus, good. And he sings this gospel song, and we go, that's pretty good. And he goes, oh, you like that one? I wrote this last week. And he plays this other gospel song, and Murphy picks up his guitar, and I pick up the bass, and we're kind of playing with him. And at the end of that song, he goes, I didn't come here to play gospel songs to you. Which one of you is Murphy? And Murphy said, "That's me." So he goes, "Okay, son, let's hear what you got." And he goes out into the audience, and it's totally dark, and the lights are in our face. We can't see anything. There's nobody else but him out there. And Murphy had written a song called "The Ballad of Calico," and he'd written it for Kenny Rogers in the first edition. I was there the whole time he's writing it. It's an unbelievable story in itself. And he had this song that goes, "No rain and the weather got warm, broke down and sold my farm, headed for the silver strike. I took my wife, Calico Silver, gave us life. Anyway, he played it. And out of the darkness, he said, "That's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. I don't need to hear any more. You have a record deal as far as I'm concerned, but finish the song." So he finishes the song, and he goes, "Oh man," and we're hearing him going, "Oh man, whoa man." So then Murphy does Texas Morning.
Oh.
Right in the middle of the 10th, that's even better, you know. And he does Natchez Trace and all these songs he had written. After about 4, he goes, "I don't need to hear anymore. Let's talk about it." And so we sit down at this little table, and there's a candle right in the middle of the table, and I'm sitting here. Murphy's across from Bob. Bob's here, and he goes, "I want you to come to Nashville next Wednesday, Studio A, Columbia. I've got a George Jones session, but I'm going to reschedule it. I get him anytime. But I want to get you next Wednesday. Will you come? And we've got to cut. We've got to record." And Murphy went, "Well," he goes, "there's magic in it. You got to come. Are you going to come?" And Murphy said, "Well, yes, I'll come." And then Bob goes, "What about him?" It was that much. He hadn't looked at me or talked to me at this point. Bob hadn't. He goes, "What about him?" And Murphy said, What do you mean, what about him?" He goes, "Is he funky?" And Murphy said, "Well, just look at him. What do you think?" And he looks at me and he goes, "You come too." So the next week we borrowed Murphy's mother's Buick. We drive up to Nashville, and we set up, and you know, I'm playing bass, but there's no amp. I'm going through the thing, and I'd never done this before. I'd never been in a studio before. And there's a long line going into the control room, and I'm listening to myself here, and I can't feel it. I can't feel it. And Murphy's doing it, you know, but he's playing his acoustic, and we cut 25 songs in 2 days, and they were all first takes. Maybe 1 or 2 songs. And it was just, Johnson would say, "That's beautiful, you don't need to do it again." He went, "Wait a minute, we're just getting warmed up." "You don't need to warm up, it's perfect, it's magical." And so...
Those were the days.
Huh?
Those were the days.
Those were the days. And the crazy thing about it happened, to finish with that one thing, so Murphy was so hard on me, I was thrown in deep end of a pool. I wasn't a school musician. It was like that Calico Silver, the bass is in the 3rd. Now you would think that bass, a C, right, is the bass is in the 1, C. But in his case, the bass was in the 3, which is an E. No rain and the weather got warm, you know. Changes the voicing, and then the next time it goes through, it'll go to the 4, and then you're going to go to a 2 and stuff, and I'm going, really? Is that what we're going to do? And I'm trying to make it up as I go along and try to learn it. But it was so, you know, hard on me as a, you know, I'm used to, I'm doing my own thing, I'm playing, I got a record deal, shit. And now he's telling me what to do in the most stern way. And get that A string in tune. And I'm going, Jesus Christ, I can't, you know, there's no tuners, there's no, you know, there's no amp. I mean, you're back in the backstage trying to get some mystery note to me, you know, and I'm trying to listen to that bass, you know, with my ear next to the thing, trying to get that A. And then if you get on stage and if it's not in tune, he'd start the song and he'd stop the song in the middle of the song and go, we're not going on until you get that A in tune. You know, stuff like that. And, you know, maybe that's every prerogative, I understand. But it affected me in the most stressful, intense way. You know, and so I get back to Texas from Nashville. The phone rings and it's Ray Hubbard. Man, what are you doing? I went, oh, I don't know. We just been to Nashville, we recorded some songs. I don't know what's going to come with it. How did I know it was going to become an album? You know, really? And he says, well, Wayne quit, Three Faces West. Wayne quit the band, and we got a drummer, and you want to play bass with us? We're playing real money. I mean, we split it 4 ways. And at that time, you'd make $1,000 for the gig, and I'd make $250, and Murphy had been paying me like $50. So I don't care if he's getting a record deal, but you know, I didn't think about any of that.
Yeah.
I just said I need to survive, so I quit Murphy. And when I quit him, the last gig we played was I had to go through these last gigs, and I was just crazed, and so intimidated and scared. Did I do the right thing? And the last gig was at Saxon Pub on 38th and Half Street, the original Saxon Pub. And we're in the place is packed, and all these musicians that had heard about these lead guitar players and all these rock and rollers had heard about Murphy from Richard Dean. Somebody was talking about Richard Dean. He told all his friends. And when we walked out on the stage, on the front row was Gary Nunn. And I looked at him as like a buzzard on a barbed wire fence. He's out to get my gig, you know, and I didn't know anything. And on top of that, when Murphy was saying, get that A string in tune, he said, just pull on the A string, pull on the A string like this, and he ripped it off the bass. And they're introducing us. Here they are. So I'm looking through, I finally found a bass. I never got that son of a bitch in tune. You know, I had to change strings as we were walking up. So, wild, crazy times. And so, Gary Nunn, I leave. Murphy walks up to Gary, goes, I hear you're a bass player. You want to play with me? My bass player just quit. Gary said, yeah, I do. And so he and Murphy is with this poet named Charles John Corto. This beat poet from Los Angeles, hung out. He was like Crosby, Stills and Nash living room poet, and Corto and Murphy write Geronimo's Cadillac, that song. So they go back to Nashville, and Gary Nunn is playing bass, and they cut Geronimo's Cadillac. And then, and I'm out, not really being totally aware of this, and I'm playing with Hubbard, and we're having fun, and we're making money, and all of a sudden the phone rings, and it's Murphy, and he goes, we need to get you back in the band. Bob wants you back. He says, you give us this energy. You've got to get back in the band. And I go, what, but, and he goes, no, you've got to get, Bob Johnson wants you back, don't you understand? We're going to promote this album. It's called Geronimo's Cadillac, and you need to be in it. And I'm going, but you got a bass player. How's that going to be? And I don't know Gary that well, you know, and they're just 2 bass players. And so he said, we're going to rehearse. And when we got to the rehearsal, in Gary's book, Gary says, when Bob Livingston walked in the door, I lost control of the band. That's what he wrote.
Well, Bob, with that, I think unfortunately we're out of time.
I'm sorry, let me read the first chapter. Can I read the first chapter? First 3 paragraphs of this new book, okay?
This is Gypsy Alibi, a Gonzo memoir. It's coming out in the next few weeks.
This is, let me just do that, cut the other stuff.
We'll start and end with this.
Okay.
You got a whole season.
He charged at me, snarling and spitting and cussing and slobbering. I'd already hit him a few times and had smashed him into my pickup door like a rag doll. We wrestled around to the side yard, asses and elbows, all dusty and bleeding, our bodies scraping on the limestone rocks, poking like dull knives out of the hard hill country ground. I hit him hard with an almost virgin fist, and he fell back for a few moments and then came after me again. He whacked me a good one on my left ear, the one that still rings. Some primal memory took over, and I actually got into a 3-point stance, the one my high school football coach Freddie Akers drilled into me at Lubbock High. It was all instinct now, and I didn't have to think. I whipped my glasses off and crouched. Here he comes. I sprang up hard, my fists together under my chin, elbows out, a perfect battering ram, up and out, smashing my forehead just under his chin. It's a wonder it didn't take his head off. I tried. He fell back in a heap and I was on him. He turned the tables on, got the better of me, but I ended up on top, in his face. Everything I grabbed was sweaty, slippery, and greasy, and I couldn't get any traction. I tried to pull his hair out from the roots, but it slipped through my fingers. No matter how hard I tried to do real damage and rip his ears off or gouge his eyeballs out, I couldn't get a hold of much of anything, and all my efforts were for naught. Then, with my hands around his throat, looking into his eyes, I saw a staggering sight. He was grinning like a gargoyle and laughing through the spit and the blood, his breath reeking of whiskey, cigarettes, and beer. And he was loving this. He wasn't taking it seriously at all. I was beating the crap out of him and he was laughing at me, laughing at us both. It was surreal and demonic in a funny sort of way. I'd only had one other fight in my life with Greg Cobb in the 5th grade. And here I was, about to strangle Jerry Jeff Walker. And the day had started out so promising.